Hey everyone, welcome to Debate Decoder. Here we look at political commentary from both left and right and fact check the arguments for logical fallacies, exaggerations, and misleading rhetoric. Before we jump in, I just want to say thank you. Yesterday's video was my very first one, and I was blown away by how many of you tuned in and gave it a shot. For a brand new channel, that means a lot. And to the folks who left negative comments, including the one that said, "I'm not sure why this video showed up in my feed, but it's terrible." Thanks for stopping by too. Honestly, I take it as proof that YouTube is actually pushing this stuff out there. So whether you loved it or hated it, you helped this channel get noticed. And with that, let's dive into today's breakdown of Governor Pritzker's press conference. This is the press conference by the Illinois governor, where he addressed federal troop rumors, state university funding, violent crime, and more.
Well, great reporting on the part of our journalists. I want to be clear, we have received no calls from the White House, from the federal government, from anybody who might be in charge of some sort of troop movement. So we're glad to have read about it, but would rather have had some direct communication. They don't seem to want to communicate at all. And that's odd because it sounds like what they're trying to do is to march right over local police. You know, we used to hear that the president of the United States supported local police. We support local police, but now it appears that he wants to ignore them altogether and just do whatever, well, he has a whim about on that day.
Those of you who tuned in yesterday may recognize this as a straw man argument, but it's also combined with what's called an appeal to motive. The governor hasn't received any official communication about federal troop movements, but he reframes the uncertainty as the president wanting to override local police. That exaggeration paints the worst possible intent without any evidence, and we are not going to let him off the hook for that.
So let me just back up because everybody talks about the last 2 decades and what's happened to enrollment. That's true. I was not governor over the last 2 decades. I have been governor over the last 6.5 years. And I can tell you this. We've increased funding for our state universities in the last 6.5 years. We've made sure that we have more money than ever before, and we've almost doubled the amount of scholarship money available for kids to go to college at a reasonable price or, in many cases, free. We've also stemmed the downward movement of enrollment in the state of Illinois as a result of those investments. Now, I also want to remind you, been a big demographic shift. There just are fewer people of the age to go to college, more and more. And so we want to make sure that we're keeping up our enrollment or maintaining it while other states see enrollment dropping. So we're going to do everything we can to attract more kids to college. Do I believe in evidence-based funding? 100%. I think that we ought to be doing it for our universities. We're working hard to get it done in Springfield in the legislature. It's got to be done in the right way. There's a lot of complication to it. It isn't as simple as just, well, let's do it like K-12 does it. That isn't how it works for universities. But it's certain that we need to invest in, particularly the colleges, the universities that have been left out, left behind, the ones that have been disinvested from, and those happen especially to be the ones that are in Black communities. So we're going to make sure that we're investing in all of our universities. We did it even in a tight budget. We increased funding for our universities this year, and we're going to continue to do that.
In this clip, the governor is doing what we call cherry picking. He is highlighting increased funding and scholarships as reasons for stabilizing enrollment, but he leaves out the nationwide decline in university enrollment and the pandemic's impact. Selective data makes the picture sound better than it really is.
Yes, sir.
What about Great Lakes perhaps being the initial stage? Does that suggest to you that it's more likely than not that the Guard is actually going to come?
You know, at this point, so much of it is rumor. Even things that we're hearing through our office, people calling who are not calling in their official capacity to let us know what's going on. We only know so much. Right now, it's hard to tell. We haven't seen troop movements yet. We also haven't seen any call-up of our National Guard, but we are on guard, hoping that that does not happen. And very importantly, trying to send a message to the White House and to the members of the Congress and the Republican Party that the city of Chicago, the state of Illinois, I want to point out the state of Illinois is 19th best among the 50 states in terms of violent crime. In other words, we're in the best half of all the states in terms of violent crime. And we've been working very hard to make that happen. And the city of Chicago isn't even in the top 25 major cities with high crime rates because we've worked to bring it down. We got more work to do. Every death is a tragedy. Every crime that's committed is a tragedy. And we need to protect our families and help the victims of violent crime. But Donald Trump has defunded the programs that would help us most to make sure that we're interrupting violence and also providing the kind of coordination between federal law enforcement and state law enforcement, the resources that are necessary for doing that. That's a real shame. And it's Donald Trump that is defunding the police. It is not the state of Illinois. It's not the city of Chicago. It's Donald Trump doing that.
This section combines overgeneralization, which we talked about yesterday, and false cause. Statewide rankings of crime don't reflect the reality of crime variation between neighborhoods and cities like Chicago, and blaming Donald Trump for defunding police oversimplifies the complex issue involving multiple funding streams. There's no way that Donald Trump could be defunding all of those funding streams. So the argument links crime reduction to one political point without, again, sufficient evidence.
I reached out to Governor Walz to let him know that we would do whatever it is that we can to help him. He should just let us know. I also, of course, expressed my condolences to him and to the families of the victims. And, of course, the victims themselves. There are people who've been wounded, as I now understand, as well as, of course, some deaths. So it's a horrible tragedy. We have too many guns out there on the streets, and we have, unfortunately, a situation where, there are kids and adults who need mental health and substance use treatment, who are often the people who ultimately they can get a hold of guns. We ought to stop that, but they can get a hold of guns and then commit these terrible crimes.
Once again, we're seeing here an example of hasty generalization and on all things shootings. While access to guns and untreated mental illness are factors, that he obviously mentions those too. School shootings have a wide range of causes: ideology, social isolation, security failures. By narrowing it to just two, the governor oversimplifies the problem and unfortunately takes us further away from finding common sense solutions to one of the nation's most difficult problems. One could argue that he was supplying a very quick answer in a press conference situation, and I understand that, I get that, but for some people, this is all the information that they're getting, and to really boil it down like that and oversimplify things is very concerning and misleading.
The goal here is that there are some specific areas in industry where we need more people than the universities can produce. For example, certain kinds of nursing professions. Even if you had full programs at the universities, you couldn't produce enough to fill all the positions that are available in the state of Illinois. So let's help our community colleges to produce the skilled labor that's necessary for those really good jobs, because we're not ever going to be able to produce those, even in nursing schools in the universities. That's an example, and there's so much more. Advanced manufacturing and other areas, AI and quantum, those are all things where there can be four-year degrees that the universities don't have enough room to provide, but that our community colleges can and can do it at a much lower cost.
This fallacy is a little harder to spot and maybe a little nitpicky, but there is a false dichotomy within the argument that sets up a choice between universities failing to meet workforce needs or community colleges stepping in. In reality, both can expand. It's not really an either-or argument. Obviously there are some programs that community colleges do better at fulfilling, and universities and vice versa. Spotting these fallacies helps you see when arguments oversimplify. Subscribe to Debate Decoder for more fallacy breakdowns. If there's a topic or commentary that you would like to understand better, please drop it into the comments. I can't promise I will get to all of your requests, but I will certainly do my best to address inconsistencies in the media. Thanks so much for watching.